Welcome back, everyone, to Issues of Faith. My guest, Lytle Thomas, President Director of Nashville Inner City Ministry, also the author of this book, The Candy Bar, which is all about how Inner City Ministry was started and how it's going today. The book talks about your life, talks about how you got to this point. It deals with racism in some very profound ways. And I'll say something, and then I want you to say whatever you want to say. What you're talking about in the beginning especially is taking black inner city kids into suburban, white, predominantly churches. And there was friction there. And you dealt with that and you discussed that. But talk about that part of all of this.
Well, it's what's interesting that you brought up racism. And I didn't, when I wrote this, I didn't even think of racism. When I lived it, I didn't know what racism was. I grew up in Campbellsville, Tennessee, which is outside Pulaski, Tennessee. That's interesting. Sandra and I both grew up there with the kids next door. Her farm was next to my farm. We grew up there. So racism was not a part of my life. I did experience it because of the community, but it wasn't like people want to make it. It was people that's just the way people were. But I had a relationship there with a young man that I grew up with. And we're 1 week apart in our age, and his name was, he went by Coon. And that's just what, I didn't even think about it. And so when the book come out, all people started getting upset about his name being Coon. So I called him, I said, is this a problem with you? Because I'd already talked to him earlier. And he said, no, I was born Coon, and I've lived all my life with Coon, and I'm going to die with Coon. And so, and what it is, when he was born, his mother died, and so he was in a lady that was a caretaker, had him in a baby bed. I remember seeing these little things, and it had a picture of a raccoon on it. And so she called him Coon, and it stuck. His family called him all Coon, and everything. He goes by today. And that just reminded me, when it all come out and people started talking, how people, you call it racism, I just call it sin. It's sin. Because what's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and love your neighbors yourself. And so anything short of that, sin. So I see racism as sin. And it's tragic that sin has made an impact on the culture in America today, and it goes both ways. And so that's just another sin, another problem. And so when we would bring the children in, and it's explained in the book how it all happened. That tells me God's all over that. When I read the story of Moses, God was all over. Moses being a baby, when he was killing babies right and left, all the male children, and Moses' mother put him in a box and put him out to float down the river, and he winds up at the pool where Pharaoh's daughter was bathing. And that was God all over that thing. And God was all over mine and Sandra's life at the beginning.
At the beginning, and yeah, you talk about in the book how difficult things have led to great things. And so there were some times when maybe a church was not comfortable with what was happening. And so you moved on and you got bigger. And so it allowed you to grow.
We were pushing people to do what God said do. People come up to me and say, well, how did you come up with this? Well, it's not complicated. It's what Jesus said. Go out in the highways and hedges and compel them to come in. And so he said it. I'm just trying to obey it. And so, you know, you go into church and people, and I have a story in here, but most of the people at church love the children. I had teachers coming to me saying, it's great to have a full class of children that want to learn, but there's a few people that do the devil's work for him, and they took a stand. And it could have probably been avoided had I approached it a little different. I talk about the boo factor is one of the things I've learned, and I committed the boo factor. When we brought them in, we didn't ask permission. And I tell people all the time, don't always chase your passion, whatever you're going to do in life, but don't ask people for permission to do what Jesus already told you to do. Hello? And so you'll have people say, well, we have to ask the leaders about this. You don't have to ask anybody. Jesus said, go do it, go do it. He'll take care of everything else, and that's what's happened to us. God's blessed us on every corner and every way we've turned.
You have dealt with churches throughout your whole life, obviously, and you have some advice for churches. You also have some advice for parents that I want to get to, but churches need to take Jesus out of the church building. They need to listen to what the community says to them. Traditions can block ministry.
Absolutely.
Those are some things that,
yes,
you've
I tell people all the time, this is not grandmama's church. This is different because it's a church where, an inner city church, is a church where sinners come. You'll be judged by no one, but encouraged by everyone. And so that's the church that I read about in the Bible. That's what Jesus tells me to do, and so we're doing it. And it's people that sometimes are struggling, but the answer to their lives, and you hear their stories. If you put me in their shoes, I don't know that I can do as well as they're doing. So what we try to do is we try to introduce people to God and then put it in God's hand and let God take their lives and develop them where He wants to develop them. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. And as far as, okay, so that's some advice for churches. What about advice for parents?
The thing that I learned early, and I really got a dose of this when I was in Vietnam, and I was in Saigon. And so parents taught their children, they protected their children. And I see it all the time in church youth groups. They protect their children, but they do not prepare their children. And we had, I was a military policeman in Saigon. And so we'd have recruits come to Saigon. And they'd be there, and the first week or two, they didn't even know how to cuss. I mean, these were kids that had been protected. They were church kids. They were good children when they left home. And they come to Saigon that was referred to as a city of sin. And it wouldn't be 2 weeks. I'd be down there either throwing them out of a place they had no business being in or putting handcuffs on them and bringing them out. They destroyed their lives because they weren't protected. And all these youth groups and youth leaders is trying to entertain children. You can't out-entertain Satan. Don't do Satan's job for him. You teach your children about the Lord and let them understand and let them develop a set of values of themselves in following the Lord. Let them learn how to follow the Lord, and then give them a vehicle, which is ministry to me, to practice their faith. And once they can practice their faith, then they'll start growing, and then they'll have a mission in life. They'll have a purpose, is what I should say. They'll have a purpose in life, and with that purpose, they learn to set boundaries and be very, very successful, and to protect them. You protect them and don't try, you prepare them, but don't try to protect them.
Yeah, prepare, but don't protect.
You do protect,
overprotect.
But you don't overprotect. You don't let your protection interfere with preparing.
What is your vision for inner city ministries now? I mean, you have this huge operation, Mall of Hope. It's grown to what it is. It's in other cities. What's your vision going forward?
We have got some men on our board and some corporate companies that wants to develop this to its maximum potential. Now, I don't know. I mean, we're talking about the Preds are talking about putting in an ice rink. It's not going to be ice. It's what they skate on, that's way over my head. And then
the Nashville Predators, because they partnered with you all.
Oh yes,
yeah, they're big partners.
Yes. And then you've got we're going to have basketball courts, and we're going to have learning centers. We're going to have all the things that everybody would dream that put the inner city child that doesn't have, is not exposed to. They can, you drive through the projects now, and you won't see children at the basketball court very much playing because they're afraid to get shot. You know, and one of our fine young men was killed over a starter jacket, and another was killed over 50 cents. And so we try to provide them a community that's a safe community. And you've got those mentors there. You've got people there that know the Lord and will help them learn how to make healthy decisions. And then we have an educational factor built into it, helping them to learn to read, because I don't have to go through life like I have. And but hey, life is what it is. So
if you read this book, what do you hope people take away from it?
This is what the reason I wrote the thing is because there's a lot of people out there in the world that's like me, and they have never developed their passion because criticism. One of the things that big mistakes we make, we have more confidence in, get this one, we have more confidence in Satan's ability to destroy us than God's ability to protect us. And so we pull back, pull back, and pull back. And it takes a few critics, and then you pull back, and you pull back. So I'm hoping that this would be the one, for example, that a wife like Sandra would take home to her husband and say, read this, and let him start learning to do the little things. Because the candy bar is about the little things and the power of God. God don't have to do the big things. God can take the little things and make them big things when we do what God says do. So it is important. I wrote the book hoping to encourage people to follow their passion and go on and go with their passion, go with it.
And understand how one small act can have a huge impact. And you don't want me to give away what the candy bar, why it's called the candy bar, so I won't. Read the book.
That's a good name.
It's a great name.
It's all true. That's the good thing about it, Ben. It's all true.
About how small acts can have a huge impact. And I wish we could talk more. We're basically out of time. But Lytle, thank you so much for coming.
Like I said, it's great to be here with the great Ben Hall. It's just fantastic.
Lytle Thomas, always a pleasure. Thank you for watching Issues of Faith. And, yeah, get the book. Absolutely.
LytleThomas.com.
Oh, LytleThomas.com. Have a great day, everybody.